Good morning. My name's Gary Wall. I'm 53 years old. In August last year, I was diagnosed with cancer. I'm here today to tell the story. I want to share it with you guys, and hopefully, you can join me in my journey.
Hello, I'm Wendy. I'm the Macmillan Information and Support Lead for Northampton General Hospital, and I have the privilege to talk to Gary about his story. The big green wall versus the little C. So, Gary, tell us a bit about how that come about.
Right. Okay. So the big green wall is my surname is Wall, and the colour of Macmillan, they call it the Macmillan Shield. So I thought with the shield, and then we came up with Wall, which makes it a little bit personal to me and personal to you guys, versus the little C. Now, the reason why we decided to call it the little C is because C for cancer, but I've got the utmost respect for cancer. I live with it. I feed it day in, day out. So we could call it a parasite, we could call it a disease, we could call it a life taker, we can call it what you like. But to be fair, I think if we respect it, and I believe that respecting cancer is one of the reasons why I'm still here. So therefore, the big green wall, as in me, versus little C, and that's how we come about.
Yeah. Okay. So you talked about, I know from talking to you before, Gary, that you want to inspire people who have a diagnosis of incurable cancer, and how you've managed to overcome the challenges of having a diagnosis like cancer and live a life that is a quality of life that is acceptable. Yeah, absolutely. So can you tell us a bit of a background about how you were first diagnosed?
Yeah, of course. Okay. So, right, I did what we all do, generally work for a living. And what come about was I'm a driver by trade, and there was a young lad reversing a vehicle. And there's nothing worse than getting it wrong or someone standing watching you when you're doing it. And I think that there's people that we can all agree there's nothing worse than being watched. You put yourself under pressure, make matters worse. So I've gone out and helped this young lad, and literally getting out of the cab, I thought I twisted myself. I thought maybe it was just a rib injury. So I don't know, maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks living with it. And then one Sunday morning decided, right, okay, I'm going to go in and get checked out. And the reason why I chose a Sunday morning, I wasn't putting anybody about. It wasn't from a night out. I'm not drunk for nearly 2 years. So yeah, I decided to go in, and that's how it all come about. And first of all, I thought it was almost like a pain of a broken rib or a sore rib. I used to play a lot of rugby in the past, and anyone that's played rugby at the time you don't feel it. It's obviously the day after that you do. But yeah, and to be fair, that's how it all come about. So from as little as living with a bit of a pain in my chest or a sore rib, as it goes, the sore rib ended up, it was my liver. And if you'd asked me a year ago where my liver was, I wouldn't. Honestly, I'm geographically about my body. I know where my heart is, my sleeve, but I wouldn't have known it would have been in my liver. So, and all the tests, I basically done a couple of respiratory tests and bits and bobs, and they done the thorough checks, and then it became quite wearing that it was more fatigue. It was a bit of a struggle with my breathing. Yeah, and literally that is how it came about. To be fair, it was from nothing more than a sore rib. I'm generally a fit guy. I would say I've been really fit in my day, to be honest. And yeah, and no non-smoker, not drinking for the last 2 years, and then just a normal rib injury.
Yeah. So you took yourself on a Sunday. Was that a walk-in centre?
Yeah, it was actually here. It was into a SEDEC special day. Is it special day emergency care unit? And crikey, right. By the time I finished with them guys, there was a guy in reception, and as soon as I walk in, he would be able to tell me my date of birth, and he told me my name. It was becoming quite a regular thing. So they first of all, when they found what they did, I went for quite a lot of scans to begin with. On the scans, they found they called it displacements of my spine. And I had to ask the question what a displacement of the spine was, thinking that maybe it was brittle bone or something had happened from a past injury. So I actually popped a question, and it was then when they explained that there was a broken down, or there was something they could see from on the scans to do with my spine. So from walking in from a daycare, then it became a regular. Then it was almost every day, and it was everyday test. It was every again, if everyone's gone through the process, it was blood tests, and it was respiratory tests, and it's more like COVID testing every day. They used to take me away and put me in my own little corner because I'd fall asleep in the reception. So then fatigue took place, and it wasn't like me just to be able to sit there and fall asleep just waiting to see somebody. And then lo and behold, it was a little bit worse than what we actually thought. But I mean, SEDEC were brilliant. They properly well looked after me. And because of the guy actually knowing my name and my date of birth, and it was almost it was a pleasure coming in and not a chore, to be honest. Yeah, and that literally took it from there. And then the next stage was obviously announcement, which was quite difficult.
So what were you diagnosed with, Gary?
Right, this is a bit where I get wrong all the time, because I chose, right, first of all, I actually didn't think that Garry Wall and cancer would be in the same sentence ever. They sat me down in the room with the Macmillan nurses and the nurses and a doctor, Dr. Masood, who's absolutely, wow, he's brilliant. The guy's a legend. He explained to me that it was metastastic cancer. Am I right?
Yeah, metastatic.
Metastatic, right? Yeah, and I still don't. So I was told then, please, right, what you don't need to do, don't go away and look about it on the internet. Don't do this. Don't, let us deal with it. But it was still the early stages because they kept mentioning markers to me. So, and the markers, they did take quite a while to come back. It was probably about 3 or 4 weeks. And little did I know at the time that obviously I didn't know that even markers, I didn't know what a marker was. They didn't ask the question. I actually coped with it quite well. I coped with it on my own. There's nobody, I really didn't tell anybody, to be fair. I had a suspicion that maybe it was cancer, but until you're told that it is, then, so I didn't really get emotional about it. I really didn't get emotional about it. It was only when I started getting really poorly that then I was like, crikey, this is what it does to people. So yeah, waiting for the markers was probably the longest time, 4 or 5 weeks, with it being an extremely aggressive cancer. It went from the primary it was in my lung. And then at the time I was having I'd lost my immune system. So my body's immune system then produced fluid, and then I'm not a doctor by no means, and obviously listening to what you guys have said all the way along, it was my body's protection against the cancer, and it was almost like I suppose a lady with having a baby, and the baby's in the waters in the room. When the waters break, then that's when the baby's coming out. But my waters were producing a barrier against the cancer. They gave me drains. It was a temporary drain to begin with, and it went in the left side, and they drew 5 litres on the first drain. Within a week, they had to drain me again, and it was 5 litres of fluid again. And this was all in the time that I was waiting for the markers to come back. So obviously now, by this time, I knew there was something properly wrong with my body. On the third drain, then it was one of the doctors. I don't know if I mentioned his name or not. Again, he was wow. I do know his name. Am I right to mention his name? I believe it was Dr. Thomas. And so what happened was he didn't want to give me a temporary drain again. He said that I'd had too many in a short space, but then they had to give me a liver biopsy. But because they'd obviously done the drains and everything was a little bit raw still, and still sort of not healed because of the healing process. my liver biopsy was a little bit more difficult. And then after that, they gave me a rocket drain. So from the first time I walked in, which was in the end of June, I believe June the 22nd, with the rib ache.
Okay.
Then I was told on August the 8th, or around about August the 8th, it was displacement of the spine. And then on the 16th of August is when I was given the DS 1500 by CAF, the Macmillan nurse. And then it was properly on the 22nd of August, I was told by Dr. Masood that I'd obviously got the cancer, the type and form that I had. So it was, although I felt it was a long drawn out process, it was the worst time ever, because of obviously no pain relief, and it was only at that stage then that they were able to give me pain relief and oral chemo. But yeah, it's quite frightening times, I think, for anybody. And to be fair, I still haven't told anybody by this stage.
Yeah.
You know, I've and the reasons for not saying, the kids have got a mother who's totally disabled. She was disabled a couple of years ago, and my daughter's an actually full-time carer for her. So she's got her work cut out. My son's got a 2-year-old little girl. She'll be 3 in June. So he sees his mother, who's not quite the mother that he had, although I mean she's still there for the kids. So it's a little bit difficult to actually explain to them that I've got this and they're dealing with that. So it all became quite selfish on my behalf, but for my own reasons. So I didn't tell anybody at all.
So how did you cope? Because there was a good between 2 or 3 months then where all this was going on, which sounds an awful lot. How did you cope?
Well, basically, I spent most of my time in and out of SEDEC. And then literally, I've got obviously good friends around me. The friends that I did tell, they were there for me. There was people that I told, and I think they were a little bit denial of what I actually had. But it was really hard for me to explain to them, because I didn't really want to come across as negative to them. And I didn't really want them, because when you see me, I looked all right to them. I didn't to them at the time. I was really quite poorly when I was 16 stone 10. So there was quite a lot of weight loss. I sit around about just below 14 stone now. And I'm comfortable with that. But to go from 16 stone 10, having all this weight because of the extra fluid, and almost being 17 and a half stone at one stage, to being quite a big bloke, quite well set, I had quite a lot of muscle mass, but it's all gone. So there was people that hadn't seen me for a little while, and they clearly see that I was poorly. And the people that see me all the time, they, I don't know if they didn't grasp me being poorly, because I didn't look any different to them.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to be a nightmare. I didn't want to be someone's problem. I'll be honest with you, I didn't, and I still don't want to be anyone's problem. But it was really, really difficult to try and deal with that and not tell people and know it. And it's quite hard to actually be told yourself that you've got it. And it's even harder trying to explain to someone that you have. It is difficult, because the first thing someone says to you is, "How are you?"
And how do you answer that?
Oh my God! And so many times, I'm like, "I'm fine." Can I just run you by a quick example of like this right? And this brings me to something that would probably come further down the line, but just as a quick example of that. So I decided that all of that, which I'll come back to. So it was only this year that I went out for my first haircut, because with the oral chemo that I was taking, my hair did get thin. My facial hair really stopped growing. It got a little bit patchy. I was going forever without having a shave, which is part of the side effects of the oral chemo. But I was actually sat in a hairdresser's, and this is and like nothing had happened. They didn't need to know who I was. I actually born and bred in Corby, so I was sat in a hairdresser's in Corby, and the conversation was that my daughter was over in Paris with a boyfriend at the time. And someone was on about their friend who was going to Paris, and just chirped up as you do when you sat having your haircut. General conversation. Oh, my daughter's in Paris, and then literally it happened to be a friend of my daughter's boyfriend, Josh, that he knew that Josh had gone with Sharon, my daughter, and then he turned around and said, "Oh right, okay." He said, "Oh yeah, Sharon's dad's ill. That he's got cancer." And I went, "Right, okay." I said, "I'm Sharon's dad." And of course, in there and then in the hairdressers, I mean, one lady, she was just an emotional wreck. And it wasn't, I mean, to be fair, when you see people's reactions and everyone reacted differently, and she was cutting my hair and and I was that, and I felt awful because I didn't know whether she had got it or she'd had it or she was just, and the poor lad didn't know what to say because it was obviously, I was Sean's dad, but I'm in the chair getting my hair cut. So, yeah, and so again, and all I'm saying this for is because as soon as you say that you've got cancer, then all of a sudden people think you are really generally poorly, and people generally are. We all are. I mean, I'm poorly inside, but I'd say that I was okay on the outside. But to physically sit there getting my hair cut and for someone to turn around and say that I thought Sean's dad was poorly, I am. But quite clearly, when I'd gone in and spoke to the person cutting my hair, the first thing she said to me was, "How are you?" "Yeah, I'm fine. How are you? What you doing?" She'd had a terrible day as it goes because she was running late, and she was telling me how she was running late, and the boss wasn't happy with her, but she didn't feel great because she had a bit of a cold. You know what I mean? And her day was terrible, dreadful. You know what I mean?
Do you think things changed?
Oh, yeah, of course it did. Yeah, because she was making general conversation, saying that she was obviously late for work, saying that she'd got a cold, and so, oh, excuse me, she kept sniffling and she kept blowing her nose, and she was saying how rotten she felt and that she shouldn't be in. And of course, I'm just sat, just being normal me in the chair. Oh, I hope you feel better soon. And then, crikey, 5 minutes later, this lad turned around and said, "Oh," and yeah, she just went to pieces. She felt awful, bless her. I mean, all of a sudden, her day was great.
It's hard, isn't it? 'Cause some of our people will say that it's nice to have a normal conversation, people to treat them as they always would, and it's so sometimes it's nice to be, just to go somewhere where they don't know your backstory.
Yeah,
So that works sometimes.
yeah, it does, and it's happened more. It's happened recently. It's happened recently because I've only just been going out because I've got, even now, I'm still suffering day in, day out with my body functions, and I take medication to be able to do all of that. And I'll call it arrest. I can arrest the situation, or I can influence the situation. So if I know that I'm going out or I plan to go out, then I'll make sure that I do the meds that I'm able to be able to go out and be comfortable. And then even so, I go out with my two cushions and I put under my chair, and I look like a little 70-year-old man by the time I finish. I've got my cushions with me and I've got my little hand wipes on the table, and I'm like, but I'm doing it purely because of I don't want to get an infection. I'm doing it for my cleanliness. But there's always one person looking and thinking, oh, what's he up to? Why is he cleaning his hands? What's he doing that for? What's he in his bag for? But I mean, it's natural now that I do it. It bothered me at the time. It still bothers me now, really. But I did choose to go out somewhere where I wouldn't see people that I knew, and yeah, I do that quite regular. And it's if I go out and I do see someone that I know, then it's almost like I don't want them to think that I'm poorly, but at the same time, when they do turn around, and I want to give them a positive feedback that I'm fine, you know what I mean? So that they're not asking me all the time, "How are you?" And I think it happens to quite a lot of people. And I think we all suffer the same. I think anyone watching this or listening to it that's obviously in the same situation with similar circumstances to me, I think it is difficult not to say, "Oh, I'm struggling because I've got this or I've got that," and it is how people react. Some people do cry. Some people think, "Oh my God, I wouldn't have thought, I wouldn't," but everyone has got a different reaction. And there's never ever a good timing. When people say, "Oh, it's all about the timing," no, it isn't. It isn't about the timing now. There's never a good timing. It just happens to be, it is what it is, and that's what, just deal with it. But now I've got around that. Now I do go out. Now and if I'm having a bad day, I'll make sure that I keep the bad day to myself. You know what I mean? I'll still talk to people. People know generally that I'm having a bad day. I don't go grey on them, or I don't go quiet, or I don't go underground. I just, sometimes I can't text because my fingers feel like somebody else's. Or if I'm falling asleep, I've done it a few times where I fall asleep with my phone on my chest, and I've ended up ringing somebody a daft o'clock in the morning by accident. I've done that recently, and I still do it.
Yeah.
But it's yeah. So people now know, the people that are close to me know that what to say or how to. I mean, there's still people that are really close to me that still don't know how to take me, because I don't sometimes know how I'm reacting myself. All I try to do is stay positive. More recently, I've started to forget things. And I don't, and I'll be the first person to say that I haven't, but I clearly have. And I do forget things, but it's not the sort of thing that I want to, it's like going out somewhere. I've just got to deal with it. It's part of the course. It is what it is, and I'm dealing with it day in, day out. Hence why we're having this chat, because obviously people are out there saying, do you know what, he's right, because that happens to me. I forgot this or I forgot that. And
yeah, people can relate to
Yeah.
what you're saying, which is really important.
and
isn't it?
there's nothing worse, honestly. It's when you've said something to somebody and then they turn around and say, you told me that. You think, oh, you know what I mean? And you think, oh no, it's really bad. And then you think, next time, have I already said that or not? And that seems to play mentally with, with yourself. It's like, what have I said? But
Yeah. So do you think there's a group of people around you, close to you, who now you feel you can relax, you haven't got to feel responsible for their reactions, or you haven't got to put on a positive
yeah, do you know what?
persona?
I get told off when I'm acting. I'm quite a funny bloke. And when I've always got a sense of humour. I always take the mickey out of somebody. The thing is that, and I still do.
Yeah.
And it's when I don't, that's when they know there's a problem.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And then yeah, and there's a couple of times where I wouldn't say I've upset them, but and I wouldn't say I've argued, because I haven't got the strength to argue. But I'm almost positive that I did this, but I haven't done that, and I'm thinking, oh, maybe they're right. So yeah, I'd like to think they sort of accept me. There are people that are close to me that have. I mean, there's people that are close to me that they know that I'm having a rough day, and they'll bring me up a couple of times. How are you getting on? Which is nice. So, and it is nice to know that there are people there that will do that. And I've got to say, it is nice to know that when I do miscall you at 20 to 7 in the morning, or 20 to 5 in the morning, or 4:30 it was the other morning. It's a mate of mine, Jamie, and to be fair, yeah, he's one of the ones that's in my quick call. And yeah, basically I've quick called him and he's took the call, so I know he's there. Yeah, I know he's there. He's not just, oh yeah, just give us a
Pass
call.
the test.
Yeah, he passed the test. Yeah, the Jedi Knight.
So going back, you were saying, that it's nice to go places where people don't know you, so that you can be treated, I'm Garry, I'm out, I'm doing, rather
Yeah.
than, I'm Garry who's got a cancer diagnosis. Are there times though when that goes against you? Because I know some of our people will say that because they look well and they don't look like people perceive people with cancer to be, they kind of under it. So when you have got like your tiredness and things, there's not that understanding. Oh, you look well, kind of thing. And
Yeah, I've not really. Well, to be fair, I have the odd pint of Guinness, which it's sociable and it's good for you. It's full of iron. So if I've not eaten throughout the day, then I've found that the odd pint of Guinness has helped. So obviously to go out, and again, I think it's taking me out there and it's socialising. And I say I haven't drunk for 2 years, and I didn't drink for 2 years, and solidly, properly didn't drink. But to have a Guinness now, I don't think it does me any harm. And the thing is, though, there was no reason why I stopped drinking. It was just one, it was starting to get expensive. Two, that I felt like I was full up with drinking since I was 7. Sorry, Mum, if you're watching. No, it was that. No, it wasn't. It was actually 8. But you know what I'm saying? When you've drunk, and then there was, oh crikey, COVID. Everyone went it. We all hit the bottle in COVID, and it was just like, right, I'm going to have almost like a detox and stop. Now I'm going out having a Guinness. But yeah, there are people that will. There's someone said to me something the other day. So I had a silver chain on, and it's preference. I could wear it if I wanted to. Sometimes I wear it, sometimes I didn't. And there's one gentleman actually said to me, "Oh crikey, it's a wonder you're not walking around with your head down because of the weight of your chain you've got on." And I was like, funny. I can't remember what I come back with, but it was obviously something very polite. I think I was sarcastic actually. I did say something back, but he had actually gone down to the group of people that he was sat with. And then the group of people that he sat with, of people that know that I'm diagnosed. And the next time he came back up, he actually said to me, "Can I get you a drink?" And I went, "No, I'm fine." And I went, you know, and then he came back and said, "I'm ever so sorry about what I said to you at the bar." I went, "For what?" He went, "Well," I went, "No," I said, "Don't worry about it." I said, "Look," I said, "I thought it was quite funny what you said." And obviously he was the person that was the life and soul of his little party. And he felt offended because he'd said something to me which he thought was funny at the time. Then finding out that I had an illness, of course, then he's come back and said, "Oh, I'm really, really sorry," because he'd found out that I'm poorly. But yeah, so people, but as I said from before, people generally are different in how they approach it. And again, to him, I just said, but then I found myself explaining to him what I got, only because I think that he felt bad, but he didn't have any reason to feel bad. But he's a person, he's a human, and naturally he felt bad. So yeah, so going back to that, yeah, there are people that do take it differently. But then again, you've got to be careful as well, because if you broadcast the fact that you're poorly, and people, we do, because if you physically want help, or you do want help, then I mean, if you go to the doctor's queue and there's a massive great queue and there's 50 people, I'm no different to anybody else. The people that I go to get my prescription are still waiting in the queue. I'm still one of the people that will have to stand outside, and as the queue goes down, go in. I mean, we don't have any royalties because we're ill, but then when you go in the doctors and people get to know you as a familiar face, then they tend to step you to a side nicely, and like Sedec, the guys in Sedec would take me through. So they're ever so respectful, but then people don't see you because they don't know how poorly you are.
Yeah,
And
if you look well.
oh yeah, I've been here with my wife Doris for the last 73 years, waiting in the queue, and he gets in and sits at the front, and I'm like, well, no, I didn't do it. I didn't ask to get put there. I didn't ask to have cancer. I'm just, you know, I mean, I've not been treated any different to anybody else. I've just been brought through out the way and sat down.
Yeah.
So
For valid reasons.
yeah, absolutely, yeah. But there are people, yeah, I think there are, and it is generally hard work. It is hard work for people to ask the question. And I don't know what your feelings are. And I've just said to you, how do you think that guy? If I was, that guy must have felt awful, but I didn't want him to feel awful.
Yeah, yeah. And we talk about this when we do the Hope course. It's about, sometimes you do have to deal with other people's reactions. And part of our conversation that we have with people is it's accepting that not everybody has the skills and ability. You know, I don't know if you found it, Garry, that some people, the people you thought would be there for you are not, and people that you thought were your friends or acquaintances have really shown up and helped.
Yeah.
And it's all down to what people's own experiences and skills are. And
Do you know, Dan, you're right. And you know, and another thing as well, and out of the blue. So I mean, I went in the army at the age of 16. And the people that I went through my training with, I was a boy soldier. And anyone that's done the boy service, it is a year. So almost they're taking you from a boy into a man in that 12-month period. But these are the guys that you share a dorm with. I mean, some of the dorms, there was 11 other beds, there's 12 of you in there. So these are people that you sort of sleep with, eat with, train with, fight with. There was no social life because it was in training. And then obviously from there you go out into the big wide world and you go to a unit and then you do what you've got to do. But these are the people that almost that because you go on in your career or do what you do, these are people that you were once a family right at the beginning, 16 years ago. It almost wipes out what you did at school, the people you were at school with, to a next phase of your life, the next chapter, the next bunch of people. And more recently, those people have been in touch. And I was never one to do Facebook. And because I have, it's almost like they've then opened up to me and they've come to me and well wished, which is really nice of them. But we're all getting on. I'm 53, and when you think of it, back then I was 16. You know, so I've done a lot between then, and I've met a lot of people between then and now. But those are the people that, and they're still sat there thinking, "Oh my God," you know what I mean? So yeah, wow. I mean, people do care, honestly. And I mean, I've got so much admiration for the Macmillan team and all the doctors. Dr. Masood, he's brilliant. I mean, when he's the guy that broke the news in the first place. And when I see him back in February, and he stood up and he almost it gave me the big bear hug. And he's a big bear of a man himself, and he could feel it. It was almost like he's that miracle. And I'm like, yeah. And so it's good. It is a good feeling though. It's a good feeling for obviously the people, the professional people. It's a good feeling for me, and it is a good feeling really for people that know me from old. But I'd rather get in touch with them through another way. But again, I wasn't given it. But going back to what you said, yeah, there are people out there that come from miles away to to care. So they do, which is a brilliant. And it is nice to know that I've got people really close to me that I've got closer, and they're there if I need them. Although they all know that I don't ask for anything, and I get told off by all of them that I should have asked. But I haven't. I've always been. I've almost been independent with the whole thing. But it is nice to know that people are there.
Yeah.
I'd rather be there for somebody else. So I've always been like that. If I ever could, I would be. But it is also nice. It's now acceptance. It's people there for me, and it is, and I love them all to bits. But it is nice that they're there for me. You know, and it now it is. And I'm hoping that there are people out there that people are there for them. Seriously.
And doing stuff like this will help.
Oh crikey, yeah. I mean,
it just raises the profile of living with a cancer diagnosis.
Absolutely.
Well,
yeah, that's it.
In terms of going back, because like you were saying, you were diagnosed in August, so that was last year, 22. August last year. So and to now, so you've obviously you approached us and you were very keen to do this podcast and from what you've said, you've gone through so much physically, psychologically, emotionally, socially.
Yeah.
But here we are, this year, May this year, and you're
still here.
Want to do a podcast and inspire people and have this energy to be able to do this. What is it that drives you? Right.
I going back, so I ended up my my last sort of 18 months of my army career was in the training. And to be fair, it was always great to take trained soldiers and take them to the next level for their promotional reasons, or taking them and training them on the most up-to-date weapons, or the tactical things that we were taught, and we could pass it on. So they were able to go away and train other people and share what they were taught, and it was all up to date and it was all current. And it was always nice to have a handshake. There was lots of people, I mean, some people failed, which isn't nice to see, but they always came back, and then there was always a second chance, and then they always come back. And whatever I did, I always wanted to try and do the best in what I did, whether it was a course and whether it was distinction in the course. There was nothing in my life, and anyone that's watching this as ex-forces, there's one worse thing than failing, and that's giving up. And I'm not ready to give up. And again, there is no way, shape or form I'm ready to give up yet. So what I'd like to do is, I am very positive about what's going on inside me. I said right at the beginning, I respect this disease inside me. I mean, to be fair, I don't feed it alcohol, so it's not happy with me there. But I was told to eat badly because it doesn't like bad food. Eat well and it will thrive off its calories. So I've got a balance with what I'm doing, with how I look after this, and it's the same with me. But I want to be able to project everything, what I do. And the whole reason for coming to you and approaching is to get awareness about the whole situation, that there is today is beautiful. Today is more beautiful in the right mindset. So I've lay in bed, and there's times where I've lay in bed and I didn't want to get up, and I knew I couldn't get up. And there was times where even swinging my legs around to get up to go for a wee, I just couldn't be bothered. There was times where you can't be bothered to eat. There's times where you can't be bothered to answer your phone, and you almost get into a slippery slope where it's negative. And there was people there to care for me, and I had carers that came around sort of once every 3 days, which was great. But they had an hour with me, and they just see me, and I was able just to put on if I wanted to turn it on, I'd be happy. They never saw me dull, and they never saw me down. I was always going to be an independent source and get away from the hospice or get away from SEDEC. I always wanted to break free and fight this and get on with it. So I actually approached you guys because I'd love to be able to sit here and inspire anyone that's watching with a similar illness, how if I can, I'll get more out of doing this for other people, so that they see me the way I am. I'll do this. I will do this till the end. And I'm quite happy to, I said to you that we could do it monthly, and I'm quite happy to bring it home, do a podcast in my home. I'm quite happy to go and do it in a hospice. I'm quite happy to go and share it with somebody else, anyone that's watching that wants to be out there and be part of it, and obviously get through this to help others. I'll do that. But it's about helping. It's about bringing awareness to everybody else. It's about trying to remain positive about an illness that I've got. It would be nice for people to sort of see how you deal with it, how you ask them, oh, how are you today? Or because we are humans with an illness. The things I want to talk about moving forward are obviously insurances and how people get insurances, or how do you go about, how do you get from A to B living on benefits? I mean, there's people out there in the same condition with me, with families, with young kids, and that they have got to be that parent. They've still got to be the mum, or they've still got to be dad. I mean, they've still got to be that parent. And it's very, very difficult sometimes to deal with what you've got on a daily basis and still be mum and still play dad. But if I can inspire anybody and to allow people to, Macmillan have been absolutely brilliant to me, and almost I'd say that you were unsung heroes. So I'd say heroes, angels. And I believe I've got two. There's Fiona Green, who works in Cynthia Spencer, and she was my palliative care nurse, and she'll tell you, when she said to me, and that she came in and saw me and took her glasses off and put them back on again, and took them off and put them on. She says, "You look fine." And I went, I feel fine. But she says quite clearly, reading this, you're not. And that's why we've got to discuss palliative care. And we went and we did palliative care. And I had no idea what palliative care was. Yeah, I had no idea that palliative care was end of life. It's getting you ready for end of life, making you comfortable for end of life. And when she explained that to me only in January, when she sat down, she said, "I've got no idea of it." I went, "No." And she explained to me why she did it. And I was that, wow. So, but I'm sorry, but I had no idea who Macmillan was. I've seen the green t-shirts, I've seen Macmillan, I've seen the adverts on telly where you see them running or doing the 5 kilometre walk. I've always done fundraising activities, I've always put money for charities. But it's about awareness, and it's not only about obviously the illness, it's about everyone that's living with it. A little bit of inspiration about that you can live with it and you can be happy and you can be positive, and it's about awareness for you guys.
So you go back to palliative care, you're right, is about preparing. Some of it's about preparing for the end of life, so that you can have a good quality end of life. Palliative care is when the diagnosis is curable, isn't it? So that you can manage the symptoms, but not the diagnosis of the disease itself. And that can be months, it can be years nowadays, can't it, with modern medicines. So you were given a palliative diagnosis.
I was poorly.
And because, and like you say, Fiona obviously had read your notes and then met you and had those really important conversations to be able to prepare you psychologically, emotionally, but the physical side of things as well, isn't it? So managing the symptoms that you've experienced. And I know you've talked about fatigue and pain being two of them,
A lot of it, when I actually met you guys, when I met Kath for the first time, was actually in next door, and in the office I almost collapsed because I was brought in, and because it was in my pelvis, because it's in my pelvis and in my spine, and the pain sometimes it's like a grinding pain, not knowing, it's almost like a dull pain all the time. And then obviously in the car, then doing the walk and then coming in, and crikey, that was it. And that was when I was really, really bad. And I was really quite poorly. And then obviously with the medication, the painkillers, and then the oral chemo, then there's obviously progress. Well, obviously, because I'm still here.
Yeah, because it sounds like at one point, because you said about having carers,
Yeah,
you obviously had, were affected physically enough
absolutely.
to
Yeah,
not be able to do a lot of what we call activities of daily living, the washing, dressing, and yet here you are today.
here I am.
Yeah.
My mum dressed me. No.
But you came in from Corby, travelled in, you're ready to do a podcast and things. And you touched on and when you were in bed and having that positive attitude. And I think some people that are watching or listening to this will be like, well, how do you get that positive attitude? What do you need to, it's for some people that might sound unreachable or really hard to do.
Yeah.
So how did you do it when you were laying in bed and you were receiving care? What's got you to today?
I had a bit of an experience where so I was staying in Billy, and the person that I was with actually rang. I'd rang the number on the back of the card for the SEDEC ward, and I couldn't get through, and I was trying again. And the thing is, I was getting worse and worse and worse, and I can't stop. I couldn't breathe, so it was a 999 call, and I was brought in an ambulance, and it was A&E, and crikey, I remember coming around to just this shadow over me, and it was almost there was somebody over me shouting my name, bringing me around, and it wasn't a nice experience. It was almost like I've never done drugs, so I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know the feeling. But it was almost like I was gone. It's almost like my body had given up, my head had given up, and I was in a mess. And I lay and thought, oh my God, I can't do this. And I did see the white light, and I know it's going to sound ridiculous. And I'm sat here saying it on the podcast, but I have seen almost a white light. I'm not saying that I've been visited by anybody or had an angel come over my head or anything like that. But what I'm saying is that there was almost I was in a massive, great big dark tunnel, and then it was all white, and I saw this white head over me. And as I came round, it was a Australian ambulance man. And to be fair, I had no idea I was even in the ambulance. I was in the ambulance waiting to get into A&E. And then they brought me in when they found out it was obviously when they found out in SEDEC it was me. Then SEDEC got me in. They brought me in and kept me in. And that's when I was really, really bad. That is when I was in the hospice part of the hospital and seeing people every hour on the hour sitting in the chair doing chemo in front of me, people turning the colours that people turn when they're doing chemo, which is like a jaundicey yellow colour, laying there thinking, crikey, they look really poorly. And then seeing poorlier people or listening to people in the wards that were there and then weren't there the next morning. And I was like, I can't do this. I just needed to get out. I needed that after coming in the ambulance, seeing what I saw, laying in the bed and seeing these people and seeing how poorly those people were, there was no way in my head I was as poorly as them. Clearly I was, and clearly I am. But for some reason, there was nothing. There was something telling me, I really don't want to be like that. I can't. I just can't. I couldn't lay down. I couldn't sleep on my side, on my belly, or on my back, because it's in my pelvis and it's in my belly, it's in my abdomen, it's in my spine. So I literally, from very early days of being diagnosed, I sleep sitting up. I've got my cushions. I've never bought bedding. This is the only time I've been out and I've bought proper cushions and bedding. They're not orthopedic by no means. They're what I bought to shove behind my back, and I just literally sleep sitting up as comfortable as I can. And I found myself asking people in the hospital, "Can I have cushions?" And I felt awful for asking. And they did, because they all helped me. And I was sat in this bed with all these great big cushions around me. And I was like, I can't do this. There's no way I can do this. I need to get out. I need to get out of it. And do you know what? And I did. And I remember getting pushed from one end of the hospital to the other in the beds. And I know that it was the porters, and I was trying to have a laugh with the porters. And they were having a laugh with me, knowing exactly what I had and picking me up from where they picked me up from. They knew how poorly I was. but they've had a laugh with me and they've all sort of wished me well and everything else. And I'm thinking, I can't be like this all the time. And that's why, I don't know, something just clicked in my head.
Right.
Just, so it's all almost like a positive way of a negative way out.
Mhm.
And it is very, it's, I don't know, I'm trying to be positive now, although I've sounded quite negative, but I think there's a certain amount of negativity to come up with a positive. And that was my positive, was that I was in such a horrible, I was in a nice caring place, but in a bad place in myself.
Yeah.
And I needed to get out, and I fought like hell in my head to get out, and I did.
So how did you fight to get out? What did you use? Did you use gratitude? Did you use mantras? You know, you hear of all different coping mechanisms to.
Do you know what? I didn't. Right. I did. I actually did what I was told for once. Um, I actually did listen. Right. So when the doctor said to me, "What is it you do?" and I was like, "Nothing. I don't do anything. I don't do anything. I don't go out for walks. I don't. I walk from the bed to the toilet. Um, I don't do anything." And I didn't do anything. I said, I really don't do anything. I couldn't really drive. I daren't sit behind the wheel because of the meds I was on. And he said, "Do you know what? That's perfect." And he went, "It's perfect. So if you can do nothing, then I'm going to prescribe you with this." And he says, "As long as you carry on doing nothing, then together we'll make it better." Um, and all I did was listen to him, and I've listened to everybody and listened to all the staff. And I think that, obviously, listening for the first time in my life to the direction that everyone gave me, they didn't know I was still going to be here. I mean, the doctor calls me miracle. And to be fair, it's quite a miracle that I'm still here, but it's not me, it's the medication. I think it's about where we are in this day and age. 30 years ago, you wouldn't have heard of a 53-year-old having cancer. It was all the older generation, the 70s, the 80s. And to be fair, if it's the pain that it puts you through, you can understand why a 70 and 80-year-old person switches off, because it isn't a nice pain. And if they didn't have the painkillers that were, and the medication that's given to us now, back in the day, you can understand why they would just mentally switch off. But I think with the help of the medication, listening for the first time in my life, having you guys believing in making me feel like a human, to be fair, although I'm a patient, um, I didn't want to sit there and ask for pillars. I didn't want to keep sitting there asking for a cup of tea. But I'll be told, "Why haven't you had a cup of tea yet?" Well, I've not. You didn't. They're making me ask. It was almost like I was being told to ask for the first time in my life. And again, that's what brought me around and got me out of it. So it's almost like I didn't want to become a bit of a pain in the backside for the nurses, but at the same time, they were telling me to be a pain in the backside and asking me to be a pain in the back. Yeah, and I was like, wow, go with the flow. And I have. I've gone with the flow, and here I am.
So what do you do day to day? What do you do to nourish you to, have a quality of life that you've got now?
To try and live it as I normally would. I can't. In my day, I was physically. I like the gym. I like running. I like going out. I like walking. I like riding a bike. I like doing all of the activities that generally people like to do. I like all of that. Now I struggle with going up and down a set of stairs. I can't walk. I mean, to be fair, when I go around Asda's, I'm blowing out my hoop. I'm knackered, you know what I mean? And then I know then, but so what I'll do is I tend, but so I do phone up people to deliver my heavy stuff. I get people to deliver my water. I get people to deliver all the detergents and bleaches that I've got to have in the house. All the heavy stuff can be delivered by somebody. And I generally try and go out every day if I can. It's nice to be able to carry on driving. I'm still able to drive because obviously it does say the medication's got side effects, but if it does enhance your driving, you can't. Well, it doesn't, so I'm still driving. I know that there'll be a day where I can't drive. I've had to. I can't walk from my house to the shop because it's a bit of it go downhill and then I go slightly up a hill, and it's only 200 yards. So I've got a little scooter, and I jump on my scooter with my backpack, and I'll go up and I'll get my milk, and I'll go up and get my bread. And then I'll go in, and then the ladies will give me a glass of water, and then I'll sit down and then, but I just generally try and do what I do day to day.
Yeah.
I do go out. I'll still go out, and I stay away from the town centre and places like that. Because I know then I'll go out if there's someone with me, or I can go with somebody.
Yeah.
But it's not good practice to go out on my own, because just in case something does happen, to be fair. But and then I have to think about living on benefits, which we can cover another time. But and I've got to keep myself active. I've got to keep my brain going. I had to do something. By doing this is an achievement. For me, it's an achievement. For me, I'm out helping people again, and almost I'm doing it, and it's not costing anything for anyone to do it. I mean, it's enjoyment. And obviously the little bit of research into it, working with you guys to do it. I've got a friend of mine who used to work with me when I had my own company, who designs little things to come up with the design that we've done, to come up with the big green wall versus little C, with the obviously the design of me, which was just taken, and then obviously Photoshop the way they do it with the green wall with you guys in the back. Little things like that have kept me. That's my hobby now. That's my way of life. Nothing. But it is what it is. I just get on with it.
So um, to round it up, then it sounds like, so you talked about, like, Fiona had those really important conversations with you about palliative and end of life care.
Yeah.
But you chose in quite a time where it was really hard, when you were in that downward spiral of negativity. You chose, actually, you wanted to live.
Yeah.
Rather than waiting to die, which that crossroad could have happened with the conversations that you'd had.
I think it could have it was obvious to me that it had happened, and for whatever reason it hasn't, because it would have look, we've all got a date, we don't know when, we're born and we're gonna go. We all know that. That's the whole system of life. When we go, we don't know. When you're told when you go in, it's a little bit difficult and it's quite scary, but then it's coping with it.
And it sounds like, and I might be right, it sounds like you've accepted it from what you were saying about you respect cancer. It's there.
Yeah.
But it's how you control, how it controls you by doing the stuff that you do to enable you to live a good quality of life.
And I wouldn't say I live a good quality of life, but I live to my expectations. I manage my expectations. I mean, crikey, this is me on the outside. It's the other bits that we'll cover in probably detail, I think, when we share it again. But then there's the nighttime process. There's the 6 o'clock in the afternoon where I start going downhill. There's the coming where you sat. You know what I mean? You sat there with your missus trying to watch your telly, and at 8:10 you're falling asleep, and then you don't know why you're falling asleep, or you'll be texting, and then all of a sudden you're asleep on your phone, and you've hit send, and then it's all gobbledygook on your phone. That's when I literally try and enjoy the day where I can, and then just let my little friend take over, and just let it do what it has to do on an evening. And that's why I say I respect it. I mean, to be fair, I say, and anyone that knows me, I say that I'm a foster carer for a disease, because I am a foster parent. I'm a foster parent carrying a disease about that I can't get rid of. So if I can't get rid of it, I might as well look after it. And then if I look after it, then perhaps it will look after me a bit longer. I don't know if I've said that the right way around or not, but to me it's right.
Yeah.
But and it seems to be doing all right. But it's having that belief. It's having the positive belief. It's just I mean, I do things literally like this to keep me going, to keep me positive. I'd love to say I could go out and do a hobby, but I can't. Some days I can't even pick up a knife and fork. Some days when I go out, I'm asking people to cut up my meat. There was a situation the other day where I asked someone, and I didn't say anything, and then there it was. It just flew off my plate and landed on the floor. But what do I do? But I have to laugh, because it was funny. It wasn't great because someone's got to clear it up, but I can't bend down to clear it up. And I did apologise. You end up saying sorry. You know what I mean? But the thing is, though, if you don't ask someone to cut your meat up, then that's what happens.
So do you think it's the way, like we try and say, don't we, with situations that are challenging and hard, it's how you react to them that makes a difference. So you could react in a negative way in terms of, you know, berating yourself or really getting cross and frustrated.
Yeah.
Or like you say, just as you've said, you've accepted the fact that actually I do need my food cutting up sometimes.
Yeah.
It is what it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
And, you know, so it's that acceptance that helps
Yeah.
situations that could be,
Yeah.
you
It's,
know,
yeah. Oh, and little things like I mean, I take a black bag with me. In the black bag, I've got my toilet rolls, I've got water, and I've got my stuff to clean my hands, wash my hands. And the thing is, though, I call it the straight through cruise. So if I'm having a meal, I'll be sitting there enjoying my meal, knowing that it's been cut up for me, but great, I can still eat it. So then I'm sitting there eating my meal, and I can only eat a child's meal. I can't eat or finish off a massive great big plate full, but I'll enjoy what I eat. Sometimes I can't even taste it. It's the texture, and I do my best to enjoy it and do my best to enjoy the company. But then I call it the straight through cruise. So before you've even finished your dinner, I'm gone and I've got my bag, and there I am. I'm christening the toilet. You know what I mean? But yeah, I am.
You know that
But
really happens.
yeah, and I do, and honestly, and I've done it a couple of times. It happened at the weekend, unfortunately, but the people that I was with didn't know that it was happening. But obviously, when I came back with a different, I came back and made up the excuse that I was cold and I had enough and I was going in. But it was only because I'd gone past. I didn't really want to go to it, but I was out of my comfort zone. But I went because it was only right to go, and it was people that are around and live in the area that said, "Please come along." So I've gone, and I've almost coped with it. I did, but I could have coped with it better by not going. But it's not going to stop me from going. You know what I mean? I still went. I still enjoyed it. Still, even though it's only for an hour, you know.
But you were in control because you chose when the
Absolutely.
time was to,
Oh,
instead of seeing it through because you felt you
yeah.
had to.
And I was absolutely gutted because there was they'd met. It was for the coronation, a bit of a coronation do where I live. And to be fair, everyone had taken sandwiches and bits and bobs. And oh crikey! So I'd had a couple of sandwiches just to be because I couldn't. What I wanted to eat, I didn't want to dive into it. And it was a massive great big trifle, and it was sat there with my name on it all day long. But unfortunately, it had everyone else's name on it. So I had to wait and do the thing and do the rightful thing and wait in turn to.
You were good.
Yeah. But the thing is, it didn't quite get that far because I had a sandwich and then it was straight through cruise. So you know what I mean. So I wish now I'd gone for the trifle first to make it worth the while, but I didn't. And there's another thing that's quite funny as well. I mean, I've always been regimented because of the way of obviously being in the services. So I am quite regimented. So I make sure that everything's somewhere, and I know even with the lights off, I know where everything is, where my meds are, everything is. So I've got that with me, I suppose, which has helped.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean to say that nobody else can do it, because obviously it's a little bit of preparation for what you know is going to happen. But this is I've got to share this with you because on my mum's birthday, I decided to organise a bit of a get together for her for her 75th. And I rang up Morrison's and said, right, look, okay, I'm going to come down and get some sandwiches. And the ladies that it'd be easy if you come down and chose off the menu the sandwiches that you want. Yeah, okay, I can do that. So literally, I getting ready as you do, which normally takes, and anyone out there that knows them can obviously, you don't just get ready in 10 minutes. It's a case of, wow, go with the flow. You've got your pills to have. You've got to have your cup of coffee. You've got to get you motivated. You've got to get everything circulated and working. So my get together and out the house, what used to be 20 minutes is now like 2.5, 3 hours. So anyway, when I finally got there, the last thing I did was turn the telly off, get my glasses because I'm going to be reading the menu. And I've walked into Morrison's and there's a lady there and she's got somebody with her that they're showing around because it's a new menu and they're all quite excited because it was a new menu and I was going there as a customer. You think I was buying sort of 5,000 sandwiches. And I was like, hello, how you doing? Obviously they didn't have a clue I was poorly or anything. And literally took my glasses case out, opened the glasses case up and it was the TV remote. And it was purely because the last thing that I did was turn the telly off. And then thinking, oh, I've got to get out of the house, I've got to grab my glasses. And I've stood there. I mean, I couldn't believe it. I was, what do you do apart from laugh? And it was it was a blonde moment, proper moment.
That you loved about it.
I did laugh about it, and I still didn't get to see the menu. And then I still just said, "Oh, some of them, and them, and them." You know what I mean? But it was quite funny.
It all worked out.
It worked out, yeah. But again, it was. I mean, crikey! Without this, I wouldn't have done that. And I was fretting over my car keys the other day. I always put it in the drawer too, and I'm like, oh, car key. I hunted everywhere for my car keys, and I just put them in the next drawer down. But I would never do that. But it's little things like, because here's what
And
it
what
is.
did you do at that point?
Got my car keys.
Laugh. You
Like
laugh.
this, yeah, this is laugh. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because I'm thinking, great, got myself all in the tears for nothing, and then didn't end up going out anyway because I spent half the day looking for my keys, knowing that I'd never definitely put them in that drawer, but they were. But it is. It's just that you got. It is just a. You got to have a laugh about it now, and it is a bit of. It is a bit. You've got to have a bit of a laugh. It is.
Have you found like it's took you a while to get to this point?
Oh crikey, yeah. Well, do you know what? It took me a while to get here because I didn't expect to get here. I didn't. I honestly thought that my time was up. I honestly thought, right, Christmas. With Christmas, Christmas is the wife's birthday, 25th of December, and at the end of the day, so was it going to get to the 25th of December? Wow, I did. I got there. I didn't expect it. The 6th of January is my daughter's birthday. Again, I got there on the 25th, and it wasn't the 6th, the 5th. Take that back. Don't cut it. Leave it in because that's part of it. I've always said this fix. It's only recent. I've learned it's the 5th. And my boy's the 25th of March. But literally, these are mileposts for me when I didn't expect. You know what I mean? The worst thing I said was, oh my God. I mean, this, I bought an old Range Rover and it was a proper old Range Rover, but it was comfortable because I could get in it and I could slide in, slide out. So people don't think of that when they're in, I'll take you to the hospital. But when you're getting in a car and it's low down, oh my God, it's agony. So it's an agony drive there, although they're doing you a favour, it is agony. And then getting out is agony. And then getting back in it to go home. So I was like, whoa. So by getting the Range Rover, it's almost like I'm sliding in, sliding out. And I turned around and said to somebody, oh, do you know what? That'll outlive me. But it didn't. It blew up. Do you know what I mean? Which is quite good because at the time it blew up. What to do? I didn't have no money, but it is what it is. I mean, one time I did, I would have been like, oh my God. But now I'm not bothered. It's blowing up. It blew up for a reason. I didn't make it blow up.
So with regards to like how you react emotionally, psychologically in that though, from diagnosis to now, is it been a process? Have you had to learn to accept and
Yeah.
learn to laugh?
Yeah.
Or did it just come?
No, do you know what? I've just had to accept it.
Yeah.
And I think because I accept it, everyone else accepts it. Look, it is hard work. When someone turns around and they say, people do actually ask, how bad is it? Because they look at you and they don't think you've got it. Generally, you can look at somebody and see that person's poorly and you're like, ah, wow, well, I hope you get better soon. And it's not a lot you want to say because you think that they are in a really bad place. You know what I mean? With me, I'm different because I'm like this. When I have a bad day, not a lot of people see me on a bad day. There are people really close to me that have seen me on a bad day and wish, oh God, you know what I mean? Now, but they suffer emotionally more than me seeing me on a bad day. You know what I mean? And this is what I said right back at the beginning. This is why I didn't want to tell anybody because when I go, it's not me that when I'm gone, it's the other people that are going to be there saying cheerio and being upset when I've gone, which I don't want. I don't want that. But we're humans. Well, naturally, that's what's going to happen. But right from the outset, that's what's happened. That's why I just think now, look, you've got to have you've got to laugh about it. You know what I mean? And I shouldn't laugh now, but I am. But it is what it is. You know what I mean? It is what it is.
Yeah. So today then we've covered quite a lot.
Absolutely loads. Yeah.
So we've got an understanding of how you come about being diagnosed,
Yep.
Garry, and your, what you've experienced, that couple of months, 2 or 3 months where you were, you had investigations and things, you had your diagnosis, and you've gone through an awful lot, psychologically, emotionally, physically, and things. But we've got an insight, hopefully, into how you cope. So what's going to be coming up?
Okay, so today was about an introduction and why we're doing it, and obviously about you guys, and hopefully letting people have just a bit of interest for others. But I'd like in a month's time if we can. And the reason why I say a month, which is quite important, is because I'm on a monthly cycle, but it's a sort of 25, 26 day cycle with my oral chemo and my patches and my pain relief. And I think it's quite important that we talk about fatigue.
Yeah.
Because you've already asked me what do I do on a day-to-day basis, and I could actually go on and fill a whole 15, 20, 25 minutes about what I do, but why I do it. So I think if we say about fatigue,
Yeah.
because people are generally have got aches and pains and wow, and what I do to try and combat that.
Yeah.
So if we could maybe get together in a month's time, and I'll be delighted to share a few more laughs and jokes about the fatigue and
Yeah.
bits that have gone on. And
Absolutely, because cancer-related fatigue is misunderstood.
yep,
And a lot of people relate to it.
yeah,
You know, there's a lot of people that experience cancer-related fatigue. So
Yeah.
yeah, having that insight would be really
yeah, cool.
useful.
Brilliant.
So yeah, thank you,
Thank
Gary,
you
for
very much.
sharing all your, you know, your story and everything.
Right, lovely. Thank you. It's a, they call it
It's a wrap.
a wrap.
A wrap.
God, I love a wrap.